Welcome to Smartacus Tells History. All right, enough with the echo and fanfare. You're here for history, right? And not that boring crap you learned in high school. This stuff's actually interesting. Like things you've never heard about the Civil War, Cleopatra, automobiles, Monopoly, the Black Plague, and more. Fascinating stories, interesting topics, and some downright weird facts from the past. It's a new twist on some stories you may know, and an interesting look at some things you may have never heard. So, grab a beer, kick back, and enjoy. Here's your host, Smartacus.
Hello and welcome to Smartacus Tells History, where we explore the most interesting stories from history. Today, we'll be talking about one of the most notoriously gruesome figures, a woman who is said to have murdered hundreds of young girls. She was known as the Blood Countess, and her name was Elizabeth Bathory de Esched. But before we get into Elizabeth, we have our food item for the week, Hungarian goulash.
Goulash. I have had goulash multiple times throughout my life, thanks to my mother and then my stepdad. And I found this recipe on carlsbadcravings.com, which I found through Pinterest, as any good housewife knows how to go through that.
There's lots of good stuff on Pinterest. Yeah, there really is.
I love Pinterest. It's a pretty straightforward dish, and actually I was talking to my husband about it last night. The only real difference between this recipe and boeuf bourguignon, like the one that Julia Child is famous for, is that they don't use caraway seeds, and there is no wine in this dish. That's the only two differences. Yeah. I
didn't even think about that. Yeah.
In fact, the cooking method is like the traditional one, and the one you could use now, like what you did, is not any different.
Oh. Yeah, I've only had goulash, like I said, maybe 2 or 3 times, if that, a handful of times. But I think each time I did enjoy it. And I've got a massive bowl here of it. I should not have made such a big bowl. So I think a lot of goulash is over rice, isn't it? Too, or is it just more like a soup?
Mm-hmm. It's a big, hearty, thick stew. It has, let's see, what did it have? Boneless chuck roast. We put this recipe called for 2 big onions. I went ahead and did both of them. You said you only did one, right?
I ended up not even doing the one. I totally forgot to put the onion in it, and So I totally forgot to put the onion in it. So just before this, before I took it out of the crock pot and mixed it in with the rice and everything, I had onion powder.
Nice.
Minced onion. That's what it was. Yeah, minced onion. So I just put a bunch of that and mixed it in with the what was still in the crock pot. Mm-hmm. And it should be, relatively, similar.
The funny thing is there's also bell pepper in here, and there's mushrooms and everything else with carrots and potatoes. But I was looking at it last night when I made it because I wanted to make sure it was okay.
Which is good, yeah.
The onions have been they've been cooked to nothing. It's in there, but there's no visible evidence of the 2 onions I cooked. Yeah. Same with the bell pepper. It's just gone. But yeah, this is delicious. It's not as, I'd say, how can you describe it last night? Decadent as like the French version of this. But it's still really good and very hearty. I
say that now, or before that, I've only made goulash a handful of times, but I put my chuck roast over rice, and I put potatoes in there, and I'll I'll buy those bags of, I think we've mentioned this before, I'll buy those bags of frozen diced onions and peppers and whatnot. It's already chopped up and everything.
Yeah.
And I'll just throw that in there with it, and I'll put like all seasoning and stuff in there. So the only thing that I don't usually put in there that this calls for is I don't put in mushrooms, and I don't put in tomatoes the rest of the time. So I mean, I guess I do kind of make somewhat a version of goulash
right?
all the time without even really realizing that that's what it was.
Well, it's just
something I just kind of threw together to.
It's an easy, fantastic stew that just goes for days.
Right. Yeah, and so I had this bowl was it was mostly, I don't know, about halfway full of juices, and that rice is now like I don't see any of the juice anymore. That rice pretty much just absorbed all of it.
Right.
So
now, if you hadn't had the rice for it, you could have thickened it up with cornstarch a bit, which is what I did last night. But it doesn't take much.
Yeah.
Did you put sour cream on yours?
No, I did not.
It's so good.
My sour cream was bad.
Oh.
I had to throw it out.
That's
tragic.
tragic.
Throw it out. Yeah. And I'm loving that we did this for the show, because I'm getting some really good food out of it. And
then you got stuff for the next couple days. Of course, in my household, this is not going to last very long because my husband likes to eat.
Yeah, I definitely won't finish that whole bowl. So I'll have some left over from that bowl too.
Yeah.
But I have 2 big bowls left over. They're like, I don't know, they're almost the size of a 2.5 quart saucepan.
Oh wow.
They're big, like Tupperware, bowls. They're bowls. They're not like little square rectangular, tubs. They're actual like bowls, but they're Tupperware. They got the lids or whatever. But both of those are almost full.
Nice.
So it made quite a bit of, and it's just me, no wife, no kids, whatever. So, that'll probably last me, I don't know, at least 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
Because I won't eat just that, but it might last a little bit longer. But then you don't want to have it, in the fridge really too much longer after that, anyway. So
otherwise, things start to grow.
Yeah, anything over a week old in the fridge, that's when stuff starts to grow. So
that's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you guys get the chance to make Hungarian goulash, I strongly encourage it. It's delicious.
Yeah, and and I didn't even. We're sitting here and we're adding these foods and stuff. We need to post the. I think you mentioned it. We need to add the recipe to the show notes.
Yeah, definitely, and take pictures. I forgot to take pictures.
Oh yeah, take pictures. Yeah,
take a picture and include the recipe that we used.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys will like that or appreciate that very much.
And I just want to say, any recipe that tells you to only use 1 or 2 cloves of garlic, you measure that by heart, not by what the recipe says. There's always room for more garlic.
Yeah. So it called for this called for minced garlic.
But 6 cloves, I was impressed.
6 cloves of minced garlic. Yeah, I was like, man, that's a lot. But even still, even with all that, there's so much the tomato juice that goes in there, because it tells you not to drain the fibrous tomatoes. Right. It says don't drain it. It says put it in there. And then on top of that, you're putting 2.5, almost 3 cups of beef broth in there. Yep. And
there was also the bouillon that it wanted in there as well.
And the bouillon, yeah. Oh yeah, so I didn't, like I said, I didn't have the bouillon. I couldn't find any. But that's not true. I didn't look. I went on the Walmart website app, the Walmart app, and I looked on there and I put in beef bouillon and nothing pulled up. So just like, oh, okay, I guess I don't have it. And that was my full extent of that particular item. I didn't really try and venture too hard to find it.
I've always got bouillon in my pantry, beef and chicken, because all those the big containers of broth. I don't have a very big pantry. I have only so much room, so they take up a lot of room. But I can make the broth from the bouillon, so I figure I'll just keep it in a little tiny box.
I've got a big pantry and I still run out of room, so it's part of the reason because I put some of my cooking stuff in there too, like my kitchen appliances in there.
Nice, yeah.
Like I'll put my blenders in there, my food processors in there. I've got those workout mix shake drink. So it's got the mix, already, you just put the powder in there and it mixes it in the cup or whatever. You just shake it. I've got like 6 of those in there, so they take up quite a bit of space. I mean, it's a big pantry. It's a walk-in pantry.
I'm a little envious.
It's maybe 5 feet by 5 feet, maybe. So it's not super big. It's about a little bit bigger than the size of a closet.
I have cupboards.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
That's okay. My kitchen is big. It's just cupboard, and then there's counter, and that's all I have.
Yeah, I have an open floor plan in my house, so it's kitchen, living room. It's one big room.
Nice.
But it's got so it's even in my like I have trouble keeping my pantry full too, or organized, and it's so it's not organized at all. I've noticed like I do have my cereal and stuff, but I was noticing the other day like I got noodles over here, I got noodles up there, I got noodles over there, and because I bought those Japanese udon noodles, and I bought the rice noodles. I bought a couple packages of those, and then I have just your regular spaghetti noodles and stuff from Baravelli or whatever, and so it's full, and I still run out of room, but anyway, so this dish is really good.
Getting back on track.
Getting back on track. Yeah, we got off track there. And I'm surprised it's been a good almost 45 minutes without it, just sitting out, and it's still hot.
Nice. Oh yeah, and you said you did yours in the crock pot, which was one of the options for the recipe we used. Yeah. And I did mine in the traditional way. I did some of it on the stove and then put it into a big old pot and stuck it into the oven. Obviously, it turned out really great both ways.
Yeah, it's still really good. So and I didn't cook it in the crock pot the right way, which what I say is the right way. I put it in there, but I only had it in there for like 4 or 5 hours. I had it on a high. Okay. So it didn't really slow. I mean, it's still slow cooked, it's a crock pot, but I didn't put it in there for 7, 8, or 8 to 10 hours, which is how I usually do it.
Right.
So the one thing that I did do different that I never do, that it actually called for in the recipe was to cube up your chuck roast first.
Yeah.
I never do that. I always just throw the whole thing in there, and then I shred it afterwards, after it's all cooked and mixed and everything. And I was like, man, like why? I'm living in the cave. I'm living in a cave somewhere, and in the Stone Age. And I was like, why didn't I even think about just chopping it up first and then throwing it in there?
Yeah, and I trimmed mine last night by myself. Might I add? I didn't have my husband do it.
I had to trim a lot of. There was a lot of big chunks of fat on mine. Yeah, there was a lot of big chunks of fat on it. I had to cut off. And I probably should have busted my meat slicer out on some of it and got tried to save some of that meat because some of the meat was still on there. I don't have a very good knife set either. I just have like a Walmart kitchen knife knife block set, the Fiberware or whatever. Yeah. And I mean, like it does okay. I'm not a professional chef. It suits my needs for the most part. But certain things I'll go to cut and I'll be like, man, I really wish I had a really nice knife. Honestly, or chef's knife or whatever.
It makes all the difference. We have a really nice set that Kenny keeps sharpened for me because he likes that I cook. My husband loves that I cook so much. So he's like, you just let me know if they start getting dull. I'm like, right on, babe.
Right. Yeah. I that's the other thing too. Like, I don't think I've ever sharpened those knives. I usually, if I feel like they start going out, I just go buy another set. Because that's, I guess that's just,
why not?
I don't know. Why not? I guess I'm that horrible person that I don't try and, that's not true. Because I'll fix my cars or, I had to fix my headset today. Not this one. But for my Xbox, it broke. So I just went, I had to super glue it. Super glue it back together because the plastic piece broke on it. I don't know how it happened, I picked it up and it was broken. I was like, how did this? I don't know how it happened. I have no idea how it happened. I picked it up and it was broken. So I just super glued it back together. We do live in a day and age now where people will go and they'll just throw things away and go buy new ones instead of trying to fix it. So I should try and, for one, I should buy a sharper or a better knife set, and then once I do that, then I will probably try and have more of an effort to keeping them sharpened and everything. That's just something that I don't really regularly think about. Like, I don't know. How long have you been a homeowner?
Let's see, 7 years.
Oh, that's
this August.
As long as I've been. So, what are some things that you would think that you should do regularly that you probably don't do?
Well,
do you know?
Remember how I told you?
Or things that you probably wouldn't think of.
Oh my gosh! So
we're getting off topic again.
I know,
sorry.
but it just reminds me. So remember when I told you that we finally got all the little this little cleaner out set for the dryer vent thing?
Oh yeah.
Well, we hadn't done that the whole time we've owned our house, and
Right.
I don't know how in the world our house didn't burst into flames over the last couple of years, because what we pulled out was enough to fill an entire grocery bag.
So, when I first moved in to my house, I was starting my second year, I think, of being a new homeowner. I never even thought to change my air filters.
Oh yeah.
In my house. And I noticed that my electric bill was going up and up and up every month, and it got up to almost $300. And I called I can't remember who, was it the electric company or the person that I had built my house. They said, the unit that we have is the right size and everything for your house. So it's not like it's struggling to keep your house, cool or anything like that. It is proportionally the right size for your house. When's the last time you changed your air filter? And I was like, what? And I was like, oh man, I bet that was it. So I
know, because you don't typically think about doing that.
Yeah, I never think about doing that. And so now, because you're supposed to, it changes at how often you're supposed to do. Like
yes.
Everybody says different things, Oh,
Yeah.
you should change it every month, or oh, you should change it every 6 months, or every 3 months, or whatever. I try and change mine every 3 months, roughly.
Yeah, that's kind of what we do too. We have it on our calendar.
Yeah, but you can also buy the reusable ones, where, or the washable ones, where you pull them out. It's in like a little frame. You pull it out of the frame, and I believe they said take it outside, spray it down with your hose real quick, and then you literally throw it in your washing machine and you wash it just like another piece of laundry.
That's cool.
And then then you stick it back in the once it's done in the dryer and everything, you stick it back in the little frame and put it back up, and it's done. So I thought that was really cool. But anyways, that just made me think of that. We went way off topic there, but
yes,
it did. It made me think about it.
That's funny.
So let's get back on topic.
Okay,
here. So,
back on topic. All right, so we're getting back to Elizabeth. Poor Elizabeth. She's been terribly neglected while we were talking about
I know.
laundry and
that and everything else.
But it's hard to imagine that the Blood Countess Elizabeth Bathory isn't known by all in some form or other. Many countless fictional characters have been designed after her, and a particularly dark legend. The Hungarian countess who killed more than 600 girls before finally being taken down and imprisoned in her castle. That sounds like a truly gruesome tale, but what if it's all a farce? What if it didn't actually happen the way the legends or the Palatine in charge of her case said? That's what we intend to question today.
First, let's delve into the legend. Countess Bathory was considered an exceptional beauty when she was very young. Growing up in the Hungarian countryside, she was taught all that a young lady from a very high-ranking family should know, including cruelty. It is said that her father was the knee at which she sat to learn such heinous treatment of the lower class and servants. Eventually, she was married to Count Ferenc Nadasdy, who was promoted to chief commander of the Hungarian troops shortly after their wedding. He went on to help his country fight against the Ottoman Turkish Empire, and when he came home, he taught Elizabeth all about torture. Eventually he died, and the Countess was left to her own devices, kidnapping peasant girls, sometimes on the rare occasion boys, and bringing them back to her castle.
It was in the comfort of her keep that she would torture her victims by various means. According to documents collected for her trial, Bathory would sometimes coat her victims in honey and leave them outside during warm months to be devoured by insects. During the winter, she was said to strip her victims down to nothing and force them into ice baths, or simply leave them to the elements to starve and die of exposure. Being whipped by nettles, biting, burning, and general assault were all listed. The most atrocious and certainly the most notorious of tortures that the Countess was said to inflict was hanging the girls from the ceiling, where they would be drained of their blood so that she could bathe in it. Of course, the reason for the last torture was her belief that it would keep her beautiful and young.
So that also reminds me, can't remember if we talked about this before or not. There's that movie, The Hostel, or I think it's just Hostel.
Yes,
Where she did that. She hung her upside down, and she had like two scythes or something in her hands, and she was doing it. She was cutting her up and just letting the blood drip down on that chick. Yeah, I remember that.
I was working at the Warren.
I'm not even a horror movie person.
I'm not either, but I had to walk the theaters. Periodically, we would have to do that to make sure people were behaving, and we got into there. I had to walk it twice, and then I was like, until this movie leaves, I am not going back in again. But the first time I saw that scene, and then the second time was at the very end, and the sounds I heard, I had to leave and almost threw up into the trash can outside the theater.
Oh, man.
It was like, I'm not doing this again. Period.
Yeah.
I don't handle that stuff well.
Yeah. I don't get squeamish or anything. I've never understood the aspect of scaring myself. Like,
I don't typically have a problem with it, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's probably had something to do with, my sister she's always been into horror
you told me about that.
When I was little, and that's probably why. I've always hated scary movies. I still do to this day. I'm not into them.
I figure there's enough nastiness in the world.
Yeah. And to me, there's no point in the movies. Like it's just, okay, he's
it has
just gonna
no
go
real
kill
value.
a bunch of people. Yeah, they're just gonna go kill a bunch of people. Okay, now what?
Right.
Oh, you're gonna go find more people and go kill more people in the sequel? Oh, okay.
Right. You don't learn anything from it.
Third movie running around. What are you gonna do? Oh, you're gonna go find more people and go.
More people to kill.
Okay. Yeah, more people to kill. It was kind of like The Walking Dead. After season 4 or 5, it's the same thing. They go to a different town. There's a governor, or the big bad guy, whatever, who's in charge of everybody.
It's the same kind of character for the bad guy every single time, and there's the same situation. I couldn't even make it past season 2 because I was like, there's no difference from one spot to the next. This is dumb.
Yeah. I agree.
No, you're not getting anything out of this.
Yep. Back to Elizabeth now. Eventually she made such a big mess that the church and the king couldn't ignore it anymore. They sent someone in to investigate, and what he found was horrific. Over 600 victims and 200 to 300 witnesses. The servants that helped Bathory were questioned and eventually condemned to death, while she was sentenced to life imprisonment in the castle where she killed her victims. After a few years, she died, but her story was never forgotten. That sounds like the makings of a great horror film, and it certainly has had its time on screen in one form or another. However, thanks to a 1982 book by Slovakian archivist Josef Kocis, this narrative of the first recorded female serial killer was challenged. Kocis' work brought to light the possibility that Elizabeth Bathory was the victim of conspiracy not only by relatives, but the Habsburg dynasty and possibly the Holy Roman Catholic Church.
Please indulge us one more time as we go back to the beginning and look at it through another lens. While Elizabeth was renowned for being a beauty by the age of 10, the same age she was betrothed to marry her eventual husband, she had a history of seizures. This naturally had ludicrous remedies, such as rubbing blood of an unaffected person onto the lips of the victim, bloodletting, and giving the person a mixture of blood from those without seizures. It's not hard to see how the theory that Bathory was a vampire began. As for her childhood and being taught cruelty and witchcraft by her family, there is no documentation to prove that. In fact, many of those rumors started after she was being accused of murder. There were also rumors primarily circulated by the local peasants that Bathory had a child with a local lowborn boy before she married her husband, and that this child was secretly given away to a local woman who was paid to essentially adopt him. None of this can be proven either.
No, by all accounts, the cold hard facts are that Elizabeth Bathory lived a regular, high-born, well-connected noble lady's childhood. In 1575, married Ferenc Nadeste, who took the Bathory name, and they moved into Castle Choktise, which was a wedding present from him to his new bride. 3 years after their marriage, Ferenc got that nice promotion to chief commander and saw quite a bit more time on the battlefield than he did at home. It wasn't until 1585 that they had their first child, and for the next 10 years, they had a handful more, 2 of which didn't make it past infancy. During the time that the Count was away fighting the Turks, the Countess was a manager of the Bathory business affairs in the multiple states under their banner. There's also the responsibility of providing medical support for the frontline troops as well as the Hungarian and Slavic people, all while protecting everything and everyone in the Bathory jurisdiction. There is documentation that during this time the Countess intervened on behalf of destitute women who were victims of the Turks and the war.
Unfortunately, in 1604, Ferenc died on the battlefield from a mysterious illness. It is noted that for at least 2 years before, he had a disease of the lower limbs that caused severe pain. His money, his estate, and all that was under his care was left to his wife, while she was entrusted to the care of Jorge Thurzo, a Palatine of Hungary. Thurzo was highly educated, victorious on the battlefield, and immensely loyal to the Holy Roman Emperor and King of Bohemia and Hungary, Matthias II. Interestingly enough, between the years that Ferenc was sick and eventually died, which was 1602 to 1604, a Lutheran minister, Istvan Magyari, made complaints about the Countess in public and at court in Vienna. It took Matthias II 6 years to assign Thurzo to investigate, in 1604 to 1610. And then from March to October in 1610, Thurzo collected 52 witness statements. This number grew to 300 by the next year. The witness statements were everything the legends portrayed.
Horrifying, right? Except that 289 of the witness accounts, with more than 250, were proven to be hearsay, while others offered no information at all. In fact, there were no letters on record of complaint from anyone in the gentry or the peasantry. Under order of Thurzo, the servants of Kachis Castle confessed to helping and seeing all kinds of atrocities inflicted on innocent victims, while they themselves were being tortured. This would be inadmissible in court nowadays, but was perfectly sufficient back in the early 1600s. These servants were executed mainly by death on a pyre. Very kill the witch. But, as we noted last episode,
Yes.
They were not burned. They were hanged. The witches.
Well, no, these guys, yes.
Witches, I mean. Those
At least
guys
ones
were.
over here. Yeah, these guys were
The witches, I mean,
lit on
though,
fire.
yeah. They were hung, not burned. Thurzo debated further proceedings with the Countess's eldest son and sons-in-law, Elizabeth, who was related to the King of Poland and Prince of Transylvania on her mother's side, and various Hungarian nobility on her father's side, had a lot to lose. Not to mention that the names of the Bathory and Nadeste families would be dragged through the mud of social scandal. It was decided, to avoid as much loss as possible, that the Countess would not be executed, but confined to her castle estate for the remainder of her life. This was only compounded when word started to spread of the hideous crimes that she had committed. It saw her children taking as much as they could from the castle before her official confinement and sentencing.
There is debate about how she was confined. Many insist that she was imprisoned in her chamber, the windows boarded up with only a hole for ventilation and one for passing food through. Many insist that she was imprisoned in her chamber, the windows boarded up with only a hole for ventilation and one for passing food through. Others insist that she was given free rein of the grounds of Castle Kachis, but was never permitted to leave the main keep. Either way, in 1614 she signed her will stating that all her possessions and land were to be divided between her children. On the evening of August 20th, 1614, Elizabeth Bathory told her bodyguard that her hands were cold. He replied, "It's nothing, mistress, just go lie down." She did as she was told and didn't wake up the next morning. Her burial place is highly debated and currently unknown. It is worth noting that Bathory was raised a staunch Calvinist Protestant, placed under the supposed protection of the very Lutheran Thurzo, who in turn was absolutely loyal to the Holy Roman Emperor, a devout Catholic. Not that one denomination needed more fuel to fight with the other, this brings up the possibility for religious strife. On top of that, Matthias II, His Royal Majesty, had a substantial debt to the Bathory family, which just so happened to vanish as soon as Elizabeth was arrested. Jorge Thurso's political aspirations were certainly helped by villainizing the Countess and helping his beloved king. As history has shown, that is more than enough to kill for.
It is absolutely more than enough to kill for.
Right? And he was good. I mean, if you read any of the stuff about him just a little bit, he was a political mover. He was smart.
Yeah. Now, whether Elizabeth Bathory was actually a victim or a villain will possibly always be up for debate. Who doesn't like the idea of vindication for the possible hundreds of girls, some supposedly as young as 10 years of age? Well, then again, what if Countess Bathory had actually been a good steward of her land and people and was only to be rewarded with hate and scandal by those seeking to further their own agenda?
Thanks for listening to Smarticus Tells History. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to rate and review and make sure to subscribe. And be sure to follow the show at facebook.com/Smarticus Tells History. Or just click the link in the show description. Thanks again for listening. See you next time.